Yeah, and when you get to the college level, if you're lucky enough, of course, to play at that level, depending on the program, by the way, you mentioned that you back then you would get DVDs on the pitchers you would see. I don't know if you saw this week, but Georgia is building, I think, an $80 million football facility, and I think in the weight room, I was reading on Front Office Sports, they're going to have a big, like a big jumbotron right in the middle of their weight room. So I'm thinking they're probably going to be watching film of their opponents
Interesting. Yeah.
on that jumbotron. Maybe some programs one day will get to the point where baseball and softball, they'll be able to watch their opponents and scout their opponents on a big jumbotron somewhere.
Or shoot a virtual reality setup.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah. But when you get to college, there's more resources. You have scouting reports, both physically, you have them digitally as well. But when it came to, I'm wondering with you, what were you looking for? Because there's a lot of elements to scouting reports, right? I mean, you could, what's the pitcher throw? And this is for both baseball and softball. What does the pitcher throw? What tendencies does the pitcher have? It can be kind of overwhelming if you know what you're looking at, but you don't actually have a plan and dig in to what you want to look at, zero in on the proper information. What did you do as a national champion back in the day? When you were looking at scouting reports, and what did you do? What did you look at specifically that gave you the best advantage that you had over your opponent at that time to get prepared?
It's interesting because I feel like this took me a while to learn kind of what worked best for me, or how I was going to get the most out of it. But what I would do is, let's say I was watching a pitcher throw against another team. And what I would do is I'd run through the film one time, and I would create little tiny strike zones. So let's say there was 21 people she faced or more, whatever it may be. I made like 21 little rectangles, and I just went through and I marked an X in the strike zone area where she threw her strikes, and I put a circle where there were balls, and that was it. And I just wanted to see if I saw any pattern, because typically what you'd start to end up seeing is that, especially with girls who have like, oh, so-and-so has a crazy good rise ball, a crazy good drop ball. But I start to notice, like, yes, they do, but they're not throwing those for strikes. And in actuality, she's hitting most of her strikes in this zone. So why am I overly concerned about this rise ball that is barely ever called a strike? I should really just be honing in on this middle inside part of the plate, right? So just little things like that were helpful. The layer one was just balls and strikes. And then I'd go through, and maybe I had a different color marker, and I was marking where she would throw her first pitch strike or her first strike of the at-bat, and then where she was throwing when she had two strikes on her. Like, I wanted to know, like, so maybe in red was the first strike of the at-bat, and then in blue was like her strikeout pitch she was trying to go for, let's say, or her chase pitch. And so, again, I'm just trying to find a pattern or rhythm, and I think that was super helpful. I would mark, sometimes I have a column on the side, what count she was throwing this off-speed pitches in. That was super helpful. If I knew there was a girl who was really, really confident in throwing her changeup and she could throw it at any count, that was something I had to prepare for. If there was a girl who had an off speed and she only really threw it with two strikes, that was also really valuable to know as well. It was almost something that you didn't have to worry about before, you got to that situation, because she wasn't confident throwing it. So those were, I'd say, like those three things: layer one, balls and strikes; layer two, the first strike and the chase pitch, and then how often she was throwing that changeup. And that's purely just from like watching a little bit of film. There's a whole deeper layer of like, does she change her motion on certain pitches? Does she show a finger? Does she slow down? Does this, like, what tells does she maybe have to tip her pitches?